See, it was all about the person. Katie Holmes once said that you need an attitude to be a star. These people were all great because of who they were as people. What if one of the coolest stars in Hollywood quit a part that made another actor famous all over the world? That's exactly what James Coburn, the man with the toothy grin and easy charm, did. But why? Was it bad timing, an artistic urge, or just a lack of interest? The truth about Coburn's decision shows a side of him that Hollywood doesn't talk about very often. Let's find out the whole story. His birthday is August 31st, and he was born in Laurel, Nebraska, a small town. In the 1920s, his father, James Harrison Coburn II, was a mechanic who ran a strong car business. His mom. The family got a bit of her Swedish roots from Millet S. Coburn, who came to the United States from Sweden. At first, things looked good, but then the Great Depression hit hard, and the family lost their car business. To find new chances, they had to leave Nebraska. James had a twin brother named Robert, which is an interesting fact. James became an actress, but Robert went in a very different direction and became a theory teacher at Ohio State University. Another interesting fact about James that not many people know is that his grandfather was the famous actor Charles Coburn, who won an Oscar. But this link wasn't talked about much during James's time. The Coburn family moved to Compton, California, after their business failed. At that time, Compton was a growing neighborhood. It wasn't something James was born with, but as a boy he developed a deep, unique voice. His vocal cords changed because he had a bad case of bronchitis as a child. This gave him the voice that people would later know. James worked as a waiter at a movie theater while he was at Compton Junior College. During his breaks, he watched Mickey Rooney movies over and over again because he was so interested in him. He became interested in acting through this job, but he wasn't yet serious about it. In 1950, James was forced to join the U.S. Army when he was 22 years old. He learned a lot of new things while he was in the military. He started out as a truck driver in Texas. He also worked as a DJ on an Army radio station, where he used his unique voice to make the troops laugh. Later, while he was stationed in West Germany, his voice led to a part he didn't expect. He got to narrate Army training pictures, which was his first time being in front of a camera for real. In his spare time, he played the conga drums in a service club band, which was another way for him to show off his musical skills. James wanted to become a better actor after he got out of the Army. He went to Los Angeles City College and studied with Jeff Corey, who would also become an actress. But when he went to New York to study acting with Stella Adler, a famous teacher, things really changed. In a big way, Stella Adler shaped James' acting style and success. "Do not be dull," she always told me, "sweetheart." This meant a lot to James. He learned how to fully inhabit his characters without letting them take over his real life with her help. This was very different from the way a lot of artists were acting at the time, which was called method acting. Adler often told James how great it was that he could easily switch between personalities, while he was in school with greats like Robert De Niro. James stuck to Adler's ideas and kept a clear separation between himself and his parts. He was very successful as an actress because of this method. In 1953, James Coburn made his first appearance on TV on Four Star Playhouse. He stood out right away because of the way he looked, and he even got attention in a Remington Products ad. In the ad, he shaved off 11 days' worth of beard growth in less than a minute. He did all of this while smiling his famous toothy grin. It was only the beginning. After that, he was in a number of NBC westerns, such as the famous Bonanza. There were many parts for him in TV shows like Laramie, Tales of Wells Fargo, where he played the famous outlaw Butch Cassidy, and The Restless Gun. In 1960 to 1961, he got his big break on TV when he co-starred in the NBC show Klondike. The show took place in Alaska during the gold rush and starred Coburn, Ralph Tager, and Joy Lansing. As the season of Klondike came to an end, Coburn and Tager quickly went to a new show called Acapulco, where they played beachcombers in Mexico. Coburn's first movie role was as Whit, Pernell Roberts' loyal helper, in Ride Lonesome, which came out in 1959. Director Bud Boetticher made history with this movie, which was shot in Lone Pine, California. It was the first time he used the widescreen cinemascope format. Whit was meant to die in the story at first, but Boetticher thought Coburn played the part so well that he persuaded the studio to change the script and make the character live. It turned out that this choice was the right one. John Randolph Scott. He liked Coburn so much that the movie star considered giving him more lines to say. This small change made Coburn stand out, and Boetticher later sent the scenes that had been cut to John Sturges, who was casting the Magnificent Seven, to see them. Coburn's career took a big turn when he played Britt in the Magnificent Seven in 1960. Britt was smart and quiet, and she was based on a samurai from Seven Samurai by Akira Kurosawa. Coburn gave a great act, even though she only had 11 lines of dialogue. The fact that his character was good with knives and guns and seemed calm and sure of himself made an impact that will last. Britt joined the group not because he wanted to make money, but because he liked the challenge, which made his job more interesting. It did more for Coburn's success than just help her. It also helped Steve McQueen get his start in the business. There was Robert Vaughn and Charles Bronson. With his part in The Great Escape in 1963, Coburn gained a whole new level of fame. He played Flying Officer Louis Sedgwick, who was also known as the Manufacturer. The character was based on a number of real prisoners of war. Sedgwick was very good at making tools and other things that could help them get away. One of only 3 prisoners in the movie who made it to freedom was played by him. To get away, Sedgwick rode his bike to France and was then moved into Spain by the French resistance. The Great Escape is still one of the most famous war movies ever made, and Coburn's acting was a big part of that. James Coburn made a choice in 1964 that altered his career and the history of movies. He was offered the lead part in A Fistful of Dollars when Henry Fonda couldn't be hired. Coburn asked for $25,000 to play the part, but the directors could only give her $15,000. They had to keep looking for an actor because they couldn't agree on the money. They also thought about Charles Bronson, Henry Silva, Rory Calhoun, and Steve Reeves, among others. Clint Eastwood, who was a little-known TV player at the time, was chosen in the end. Clint Eastwood agreed to play the part for $15,000. It changed his whole life. He had only been a supporting actor in a TV Western that wasn't very famous before this. The success of A Fistful of Dollars started his career and made the next 2 movies in the trilogy pay him a lot more. His pay went up to $50,000 for a few extra dollars. He had already made The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly by this time. He was getting $250,000 plus 10% of the movie's box office earnings. Eastwood became a big star around the world very quickly. Soon he was getting $500,000 to $600,000 to work on big Hollywood projects like Paint Your Wagon and Where Eagles Dare. James Coburn went in a different direction while Clint Eastwood became a well-known Western star. Coburn decided to be the lead in the comedy Our Man Flint at the end of 1964. Saul David, who produced the movie, chose Coburn because he had a style that was a mix of Humphrey Bogart's coolness and Jean-Paul Belmondo's charm. It was a big hit when it came out in 1966. Coburn's role as Derek Flint, a smart spy who has tools like an 83-function cigarette lighter. That made him a good main man. The success led to a follow-up called In Like Flint, but Coburn didn't want to keep writing in the series after that. He wanted to play different parts and not be stuck with one. It's interesting that his part as Flint later led to the creation of Austin Powers by Mike Myers. Following his rise to fame as an actor, Coburn chose to take charge of his business by establishing his own production company. The President's Analyst, a bold political comedy that came out in 1967, was his first big project. It wasn't a big hit at the box office at first, but it later gained a cult following. Once Coburn started his own business, he had more freedom to pick projects that were both creative and hard. He even started directing over time. He co-directed the movie Convoy in 1978, which showed how his work had changed. A big part of James Coburn's life was his first marriage. They were together for a year before he married Beverly Kelly on November 11, 1959. After 19 years and 5 months of marriage, they finally split up on April 12, 1979. They had 2 kids together while they were together. There was also a time when they were married when Coburn became famous in Hollywood, when he was married to Beverly. Some of his most well-known movies were with him, like The Magnificent Seven and The Great Escape. Coburn was with British singer Lindsay DePaul for 4 years after their split. They wrote songs like Losing the Blues for You and Melancholy Melon together. Then Coburn met and married Paula Murad again. The wedding was very beautiful and took place in Versailles, France on October 22, 1993. When Coburn got serious rheumatoid arthritis in 1979, his life changed in a big way. It hurt a lot, and his fingers would twist because the muscles were too short. In fact, the pain was so bad that it would make him sweat just to stand up. This illness reminded Coburn of the problems his father had, which made his motto, "Go bravely on," even more important to him, even though they could get great medical care. It didn't look like anything could help. Coburn tried many different methods for 20 years but never felt better. It got so bad that his arthritis almost killed his acting career. He didn't appear in movies for most of the 1980s. When Coburn was 68 years old, he found hope in an alternative treatment called MSM. MSM is a sulfur compound that you can buy at health food shops. With the help of Dr. Ronald Lawrence, Coburn started taking MSM, which helped him feel less pain and congestion. The effects happened right away and changed my life. The medicine didn't fully cure his arthritis, but it helped enough that he could go back to acting. After he got better, Coburn became a champion for MSM and even appeared in ads for it. People were interested and upset about his success with this alternative medicine, as there wasn't a lot of scientific proof that MSM worked. In 1990, he played a strong cattle baron named John Simpson Chisholm in Young Guns 2. This was the start of his comeback. It was amazing that he came back because he had been sick for months and could barely move. During this time, he played a lot of different parts in movies like Hudson Hawk, Sister Act 2, and Maverick. Even though he was having health problems, his acting and charm were still strong. In 1998, when he was 70 years old, Coburn gave what many people think was his best act ever. In the movie Affliction, he played Glenn Whitehouse, a cruel and abused father. That part was scary and hard for him mentally, but he did a great job with it. He won the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor for his role. It meant a lot to him that this moment happened almost 40 years after his big break in The Magnificent Seven. Coburn said that working with director Sam Peckinpah, who had a problem with drinking, gave him ideas for the part. Not only did winning the Oscars show how good he was as an actor, It also showed that he had overcome years of pain and health problems. Even when his arthritis was at its worst and playing on screen was too hard for him, Coburn found a way to keep working in the business. He did voice work and made good use of his deep, gravelly voice. They used his voice a lot in their work, and he did a lot of voice acting jobs. In the Disney Pixar movie Monsters, Inc., which came out in 2001, he played a figure who came to life with just his voice. When he wasn't able to be on camera, he still worked on movies and voiceover projects. He kept his career going in Hollywood during a rough time in the 1980s by narrating films like White Rock. In his last years, Coburn worked hard at what he loved. Over the course of 43 years, he was in 74 TV shows, 24 movies, and 94 movies, even when he was old. As an actor, he kept working in movies that showed off his range. He was at home listening to music and playing his flute on the day he died, November 18, 2002. Coburn was famous for more than just being an actor. He was also friends with famous people like Steve McQueen and Bruce Lee. When Bruce Lee showed James Coburn his famous one-inch punch, the two became friends. They met at a party in Hollywood. He amazed Coburn and made him want to learn more. Their friendship got stronger in more ways than one. In Hollywood, Coburn became one of Lee's best friends. Lee had so much faith in him that they worked together on a script called The Silent Flute. It was unusual for Lee to work with someone else on a story. He didn't do that very often. Coburn told Lee something in 1971 that changed Lee's future. Coburn told Lee that he shouldn't play the lead part in the TV show Kung Fu. He said Lee's tough style of fighting might not work for a long TV show. Coburn told Lee to go back to Hong Kong instead because he thought Lee would have more luck there. Lee heard what was said and chose not to go on the show. It was his goal to make more money than Steve McQueen, he told Coburn. Lee went back to Hong Kong and made his well-known movies, including The Big Boss. He became famous for Fist of Fury and Enter the Dragon. Their friendship wasn't always easy. Things got tense when they went to India to look for places to film The Silent Flute. Lee thought he was stuck in Coburn's shade. Lee was very good at martial arts, but he didn't have much of a say in what happened. This made him mad and caused a split between them. When Coburn later went to see Lee in Hong Kong, Lee was more excited to show off his fame than talk about plans for the future. Their relationship never got better. Coburn was one of Bruce Lee's most dedicated pupils. He studied with Lee for 3 years and had over 100 one-on-one lessons. He even copied Lee's plan and made a special exercise room in his own home. Coburn wasn't just getting stronger. He also learned about the greater ideas behind Kung Fu. Lee thought this was great about him and said that Coburn, not like many of his other students, understood martial arts on a spiritual level. As Lee trained, Coburn got a close look at his amazing skills. When Lee kicked big bags so hard that they swung all over the place, he was amazed at how strong and fast Lee was. Coburn was the most dedicated martial arts student of all of Lee's Hollywood students. Sam Peckinpah, the director, and Coburn also got along well at work. They were in a number of movies together, such as Cross of Iron, Major Dundee, and Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid. People knew Peckinpah for his skills, but they also knew him for his problems with drinking. He drank so much during Cross of Iron that shooting had to stop many times so he could get better. Even though they had problems, Coburn stayed loyal to Peckinpah because he admired his artistic vision. Coburn had a hard time with Cross of Iron. In this movie about World War II, he played Corporal Rolf Steiner. From the beginning, the process was hard. It was shot in Yugoslavia, but they didn't have enough money to finish it. Real tanks and weapons from the Yugoslav army were used by the team to make everything look real. Near the end of shooting, one of the most dramatic parts happened. Before the last scene was filmed, the producers tried to end the show. When the directors were asked to leave the set, Coburn stepped in and made sure the scene was finished. In the last scene, he says, "I will show you where the iron crosses grow." This line became famous. Cross of Iron is still thought to be one of the most realistic war movies ever made, even though it cost more than planned.